We will call our meeting tonight to order. Roll call, please, Renata.
Adams.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Edinger.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
McEvers.
Here.
Gookin.
Here.
We will rise for invocation from Pastor Owens from the Heart of the City Church.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to pray tonight. The Bible talks about praying for those in authority, and I think that's very important. I think because they make such important decisions that you need wisdom and guidance. So I'd like to pray that way tonight. So, Father, we just thank you for a wonderful day. Thank you for a beautiful season in Coeur d'Alene. Lord, I lift up the mayor and the entire city council, their families and spouses, that you would bless them. And I pray for them. I pray for them even tonight, decision-making tonight and days and weeks and months to come. Lord, you tell us to pray for those in authority that we could live peaceful and quiet lives. And it has a lot to do with the decisions that they make. And I just pray that you would give them just amazing insight and discernment and unity of heart to make wise decisions. We pray that you would bless the other authority in our cities of police officers and principals and teachers and business owners and all areas of leadership we lift up. Lord, we ask that you bless this time and bless our city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Steve, listen to the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
I think we're okay for the amendments tonight. Oh, yeah, I think we're not supposed to. Okay.
So any amendments to the agenda tonight?
Mr. Mayor, we do need to add an executive session under Idaho Code 672345 to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please. Do we have to have a roll call for that? I've got it on my little list here.
Oh, okay.
Sure. We'll go ahead. Adams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Edinger.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
McEvers.
Yes.
Gookin.
Yes. Okay, motion carried. We will go on to the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, let me move to accept the consent calendar, which consists of a whole bunch of stuff, including approval of fireworks stands, approval of a cemetery repurchase, transfer of a cemetery spot, resolution 15026, approval of change order final with William Brothers Construction from the wastewater phase 3, 5C1. Whew, there was a lot of those. That was from Public Works Committee. Declaring certain IT equipment as surplus, recommended by General Services, and approval of a memorandum of understanding with the City of Post Falls for plumbing inspection shared services, recommended by the General Services Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin.
Aye.
Evans.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Edinger.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
McEvers.
Yes.
Motion carried. Announcements. Any city council member? Steve.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple. Last week, Wednesday, Thursday, my neighbor Stan Shedler with the Shedler Mac Agency and I went out and canvassed East Sherman from 11th to 23rd, spreading the word about the East Sherman Town Hall meetings coming up. The first one will be tomorrow night, June the 3rd, right here in the library from 5 to 7. And the next one is June 18th from 5 to 7 at the Harding Family Center. If you have any questions on that, there's a number on there for the planning department at 769-2240. So feel free to give a call and come on out. If you have any input to give on the master plan for revitalizing East Sherman, please come out. And I asked Mr. Shedler to give me a report on what he thought of the general opinions of the property owners and business owners, but he failed to get that to me. So I'll reserve my analysis for the meetings, but it seemed to be very well received, and so a lot of people should show up for these. So also, a couple of Tuesdays ago at our strategic planning workshop, the LCDC came up for discussion, and Councilman Gookin made a comment about the dissolving or ending of urban renewal agencies, that they were vampires, that they could never be killed, and I disagreed with him on that, and so we left it at that. And so I sought out Mr. Gridley's professional legal opinion, and thank you, Mike, for doing the research on that. And Mike shot us both an email, and I'd just like to read that, just for a point of clarification. I know, Mike, you sought out the opinion of Ryan Armbruster from the state, and I think you spoke to Tony Burns and maybe legal counsel from Lake City Development Corp as well, I'm not sure. So anyway, so Mike responded. Steve asked me about whether or not LCDC could live forever and never be ended. Here's the short answer and the longer answer. The short answer is that City Council could repeal and rescind the resolution adopted under Idaho Code 50-2005 that created the URA. If all other obligations were satisfied, then that would probably put the agency to rest for good. The longer answer is that winding up a URA would take some time to fulfill its obligations, disposal of property it owns, and any reporting requirements, etc. Once the URA is gone, then a future council would have to go through the process to set one up again if they wanted one. And I know, Dan, that you had responded and asked some additional questions. Feel free to engage if you like. I know you thought it was trifle, I think was a term you used. I thought it was important for clarification for the community and for the council. So anything you would like to add?
Certainly. Thank you, Steve. My interpretation of the Code 50-2006 is that it opens with a line that there exists in every municipality in Idaho an urban renewal agency. And by fiat, it's created. You can repeal it, but just as you said, they can start it up again. So, open the casket, vampire comes out. There's not a mood right now on council, I think, to dissolve the agency. So it remained an academic exercise, and I thank you, Mr. Gridley, for providing the input, which basically said, boy, it's vague. It can go either way.
And I might add, if you will, that in essence, I think both of you were right. You can effectively put it down, create it, make it dormant so that it doesn't do anything, dead. There is, by Dan read the statute correctly, I think, that in every city one is set up. But the fact that it's set up doesn't mean it does anything, can do anything. It's effectively dead. And so, I don't know if that means you're tied, but that was my intent in expressing that to you.
All right. So we both get to be Fonzie then. We don't have to. We can both be right. That's cool.
Is the debate over? That's it?
That's it.
No more debate,
Is it a
Dan?
vampire or a zombie?
It's pretty
then?
calm.
Another time.
Okay. All right, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I got.
Okay. Anyone else have announcements? Wood?
Boy, that's a tough one to follow. Guys. Well, last Friday, I went to Dalton Elementary and hung out with about 700 screaming kids. And the skate park kids came over and did a demonstration and talked about skating from a perspective I've never seen. And so we built a little video out of it. It's a little, listen, I think a couple minutes, and I want to thank Jeff Crow for helping me. And I was going to invite Nathan Baker, he's our skateboard guy, kind of helping make things go, and have him just address a couple of the things that are coming up this month. So, Jeff, if you can roll that. After that, Nathan will kind of speak to what's going on. There's a few projects coming up this month that we want people to know about. Okay. tell us about, that was fun. That was
It
really
was a lot of fun. Thank you, council, for allowing me to talk on it a moment. We were thrilled that Mr. Gray was brave enough to invite skateboarders and bike riders into his gymnasium. I thought he was nuts letting us go in his gymnasium. I thought outdoors would be much better suited, but it went well, and the kids loved it, and we got a chance to share with them. You notice there were some of the smaller children there. We got to show them the starting points of skateboarding. And one of the things that we're really excited about is that we've partnered with Park and Rec this year. And on the 12th, we're going to have our orientation night. And then on the 13th, we're going to have a 3-week series of Park and Rec skateboard clinics, where we're going to have 6 to 16-year-olds coming in, pairing with skateboard coaches, and with proper gear, being able to borrow some gear that we've rounded up to start the process of trying to have a positive outlet to show some of these younger kids how to skateboard and get them introduced to the skate park in a positive way. We're making great effort to try and make the skate park an area where these children of that age group can come there and have it be a warming and welcoming area for them. And one of the things that the park department has been nice enough to do is help us source the paint that's going to be necessary to put a new face on the skate park. So we're going to be putting some new paint down over the surfaces. So taking care of the home we've got for the time now and getting some paint on there. The June 21st, we're having our parade down Sherman, where we're going to have all the skaters bomb down Sherman and then have a Go Skate Day event at the skate park. So safely and legally having a parade down Sherman. So we're thrilled about that. And between that and a successful demo, we have some contests this summer, but we're really excited to do what we can do to positively affect skateboarding and the skateboard community and bike community in Coeur d'Alene. And I feel like we see some real turning points and some real positivity going on for skateboarding in Coeur d'Alene.
Question for you. Your skate parade, where is it going to start at? Where are you going to gather?
We're going to be gathering in the Java parking lot.
So 9th and Sherman.
9th and
Java
Sherman,
Park.
and then
Okay.
we'll be ending at 3rd and Sherman.
And time again?
11 a.m.,
11 a.m. on the 21st.
21st.
It's Dad's
Sir.
Day, by the way.
Get our boards out, right?
Funny,
Wood?
isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
Except I'm
Any-
always working on Dad's Day.
Any
Thanks,
questions? Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I have one more comment to make. Ron Hunter retired this last Sunday. He's kind of one of those church guys. And as I remember, Ron was some of the beginning of our prayer thing here. I think he was one of the starters of it and got all the churches together, and that's how we end up getting our guys to come and do a little prayer before we do the pledge and stuff. And I just wanted to wish him well. I can't imagine him not being here because he always said good stuff. You know, all these guys say good stuff, makes you feel good. So I just kind of wanted to give him a little recognition. One little story about Ron is, remember before, you don't remember, I have to tell you the story about the roundabout out there at Kathleen and 4th Street, and his church is there. And boy, he just didn't think a roundabout was the right thing, and he was pretty stern about it. And I remember after the fact, him coming up to me and saying, you know, this is really cool, and it works really well. And I'll always remember Ron for that. Good prayers and liking roundabouts.
One of the original church guys, right?
And we're church guys. There's some name for that, right?
Yes. I think it's called a pastor. Yeah.
The apostle.
The group.
Yeah.
Group, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything? I have a couple of things. It is budget season, Troy's favorite part of the year. And just wanted to remind everyone that we do have our budget survey online at our city website, cdaid.org. We've had well over 100 participants come in and take our survey, as well as leave comments for us, some very good comments. So I want to encourage you to keep on logging on, or for some new people
No,
to...
just do it once.
Well, you can do it a couple times if you want to, if you feel strongly enough about it. But participate in the process and give us your feedback. Then I have a reappointment of Jennifer Drake to the Arts Commission.
Move to reappoint Jennifer Drake to the Arts Commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. General Services, we have authorization of grant application for 3 officers through the COPS Hiring Grant, U.S. Department of Justice. Police Chief Lee White.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you guys have heard me talk about over the past 8 or 9 months, the department remains understaffed. We are currently still 12 officers below where we should be based on our calls for service and our crime rates. Last year, about this time, I think then Interim Chief Clark came before you and requested that we submit a grant opportunity for 3 officers. We did not receive it that year. We're asking to apply for the same grant again this year. We're just changing the manner in which we would deploy those officers. I will tell you that still it's hard to get this COPS grant. It's extremely competitive. There's going to be agencies throughout the United States that are applying for it to give preference points for certain things. This year, when we write the grant, we're going to be asking that these 3 officers, if hired and if funded through the COPS grant, would be used in a community action team. And this is kind of something that we've been talking about over the past several years. It's the manner in which we're going to be using our school resource officers over the next 3 months. And I think it's something that our community drastically needs. This will supplement the patrol staffing. It'll help us out there on the streets. It should ultimately help us with our crime rates and that sort of thing. I think really the challenge that I have is trying to find funding without making Troy fall over dead for the 12 additional officers. I know we don't have it in our budget, and so it's up to me to find new ways of trying to fund those officers, and this is one such way. So what I'm looking for is some approval to apply for and accept the COPS hiring grant through the U.S. Department of Justice.
Questions for Chief? Dan?
So, Chief, a question came up at the General Services regarding federal strings. What are the actual federal strings attached to this grant?
This grant would provide $375,000 to the city for a total of 3 police officers. That's the max we can ask for. We would be responsible for the remainder of the officer's salary, and we would be responsible for the entire 4th year, keeping all 3 officers on our payroll. The other stipulation is we were agreeing to at least try to hire U.S. veterans for the armed forces. Those are the strings that are attached to this one.
So not any qualifications that, like I know there was one grant we got where the officer had to be like in a certain region of the city or on a certain type of patrol, no strings like that? No,
there are different areas you can apply for in this grant. For instance, one of the things that they're really been pushing over the past couple of years is school resource officers. Mm-hmm. Frankly, we've done a fantastic job in this city of working with our local school district and putting on cops in schools, and so that's not something that really is applicable to us. Some of the other things that the U.S. Department of Justice is looking for, there's a number of different areas. And in applying for this one, what we did is we looked at the need that we have as a city, and then we looked at like-sized cities throughout the U.S. who were successful in their application for this grant last year. We looked at what they applied for and how well it balanced with what we're looking for, and so we've tailored our grant application based on my vision of what I would like our patrol cops to do. This select team is something that I've been pushing even before I was hired here. During the application process, I talked about I would like to have a team that was doing more community outreach in addition to the crime-fighting function, and so this fits very well into the vision that I have for the department. I don't see this being a huge hurdle in terms of strings from the federal government.
Very good.
Okay. Other questions? Ron.
I don't have any question. I just want to make a motion that we authorize the grant application.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Further discussion? Steve?
Mr. Mayor, just to reiterate, the one question I asked at General Services, Chief White, was if we don't get the grant, then there's no alternative. We just...
No, sir. I've already just about put Troy in panic mode with my request for this year for cops. I don't think I can go any higher than that. This is something that is unbudgeted. If we were not to receive this grant, there is no plan B. This would just be 3 cops that we do not get.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, it looks like my position drew a little bit of attention all the way down to Boise. So I got an article written about it here from Dustin Hurst with the IdahoReporter.com. I'd like to read it and make some comments along the way. Mr. Hurst writes, Coeur d'Alene City Councilor Steve Adams voted against more federal money for cops in his city, worrying the cash would come with federal strings. I don't like the potential of having to fund this in the 4th year with no plan, Adams told IdahoReporter.com Wednesday. Adams served as the lone dissenter on a 2-to-1 vote to move forward on the grant application. If the U.S. Department of Justice approves the request, Coeur d'Alene would receive $375,000 to pay 3/4 of 3 officers' salary and benefits for 3 years. Coeur d'Alene would have to pick up the remaining quarter of the cost for the first 3 years, plus the total cost of 3 officers for the 4th year. Grant rules require the city keep the officers on for a year after the federal funds run out. The Coeur d'Alene Police Department plans to deploy officers in the East Sherman area of town, recently plagued by burglaries. Adams drew the ire of leftist blogger Dave Oliveira, who bashed the counselor in a Spokesman Review blog post Tuesday. And this is exactly why Councilman Steve Adams should become a one-term council member, Oliveira wrote. A vote against 3 new officers simply because he doesn't like the federal strings attached is goofy. I'd like to make a little commentary on that. What Mr. Oliveira has done is used a juvenile tactic called a logical fallacy in the form of an ad hominem attack. And the reason he did this is because he doesn't have an intelligent, debatable argument to present. And so he resorted to name-calling. It's very immature, in my opinion. And Mr. Hurst continues, goofy or not, questions remain about the program's effectiveness. Money flows from the federal government to localities through the Department of Justice's Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Since President Bill Clinton kicked off the program in 1994, localities have secured more than $14 billion in federal dollars used primarily to hire cops. The program exists, according to the Nonpartisan Government Accountability Office, to proactively address conditions that give rise to public safety issues, including crime, social disorder, and fear of crime. Though American cities boast thousands more cops on the streets, GAO data suggests the billions invested have done little to cut crime rates. While we find that cops' expenditures led to increases in sworn police officers above levels that would have been expected without these expenditures, and through the increase in sworn officers led to declines in crime, we conclude that COPS grants were not the major cause of decline in crime from 94 through 2001, the GAO reported in a 2006 COPS evaluation. The agency reported the federal cash cut total crime by 5% and violent crime by 7% between 93 and 2000. Researchers said other immeasurable factors led to the total 26% overall crime rate drop in the time span. These same factors cut violent crime by 32% between 93 and 2000. The Conservative Heritage Foundation suggests the grants had little to no impact on crime rates. For instance, the hiring grants did not have a statistically significant relationship with murder, rape, assault, burglary, larceny, or auto theft rates, although they were associated with negligible reductions in robberies, with a 1% increase in hiring grants associated with a 0.01% decrease in robbery rates, Heritage researchers wrote. The Heritage Foundation joins Adams in worrying about the nationalization of local police forces. Grants that subsidize the routine activities of local enforcement assigned to the federal government functions that fall within the expertise, jurisdiction, and constitutional responsibilities of state and local governments, Heritage's David B. Mulhausen and Eric Little wrote in 2007. I pulled a few articles from the web to support this as well. Update, city holds off on cops, manager wary of strings attached. This, I think, came out of the Latah County area. Norwalk turns down COPS grant. Norwalk Mayor Sue Lesh said it was a decision she didn't want to make, but she opted not to accept the grant because it came with too many strings attached. Federal aid for more cops has strings attached. City, county officials around the region don't know where they'd find matching money. Controversial police grant passed by Utica. This one passed. Thought I would be fair, but it was a 5-4 vote. So my position is not goofy. My position is very well founded based off of this article and this research. Mr. Hurst continues, Adams blasted the two-faced nature of his detractors who often complain when state lawmakers in Boise restrict city council or county powers. They will then say these federal grants are wonderful, Adams said. They're hypocritical in a lot of their bashing. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that that's true. The grant monitoring standard and guidelines for all COPS grants and cooperative agreements, it's 117 pages. That's a lot of guidelines. These things come with special conditions. The GMSG will enable grantees to become familiar with the administrative, financial, and program-specific terms and conditions, special conditions, or other requirements that must be complied to ensure grantees effectively implement COPS office grant programs. We don't even know what those might be. They might be something that the community or the police department doesn't like. No local control in that. The grant conditions are listed on your agency's award document. By accepting this grant, you are obtaining federal funds from the COPS office. As part of that agreement, your agency acknowledges that it will comply with these conditions, and if applicable, additional special conditions specific to your agency. The Libertarian Cato Institute worries about the nationalization of police forces too. After President Barack Obama's administration released a report on improving police-community relations, Cato analysts noted a line suggesting the COPS office used financial incentives to entice localities to meet yet unknown federal policing benchmarks. As in most other policy areas, when it comes to police reform, a decentralized approach is better than a centralized one, Cato's Matthew Feeney wrote March 3rd. Feeney suggested federal officials with the benchmarks, but forego the financial incentives to give localities the chance to properly evaluate proposals without dollar strings attached. In Coeur d'Alene, the full City Council will take up the issue at its June 2nd meeting. Coeur d'Alene is hardly the only city in Idaho taking the federal dollars. Boise, Twin Falls, Payette, and Spirit Lake, among others, have taken federal cash in recent years. And while these are all very valid concerns, as I've said in the past, it's not my main concern. My main concern is the fact that the federal government is, I don't know how many trillions of dollars in debt, 19 trillion reported, probably quadruple or even greater than that. So for myself, I cannot in good conscience continue to be a part of the problem with accepting this debt money. And so really, if there's really a need for these officers, we have a $6 million fund balance. $500,000 could take care of it right now, and we could be flexible in how we would tailor these cops. They wouldn't have to be just relegated to the East Sherman substation. So for those reasons, I will be opposing this as I have in the past. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dan?
Mr. Mayor, a couple of clarifications, Chief, if you would. When you were in the Mesa PD, did you accept these COPS grants?
Yes, sir. We had 25 officers that were slated to be laid off. Through the application and acceptance of this grant, I saved 25 COPS jobs. I will tell you that from that year and every year thereafter, we reduced crime rates by at least 5% per year.
And that was my
years, we went way
follow-up.
over that.
Is this grant in any way related to the militarization of our police department?
Okay, two things. First of all, I don't think there is a militarization of our police department. What we're going to use these officers for is more of a community outreach type thing. It will have a crime fighting component as part of our normal jobs, but I plan on having them attend public meetings. I have planned they won't just be stationed just out of Station 2. I mean, that's where they're going to be housed. However, they're going to be assigned different areas in the city, and they'll be responsible for combating the crime trends that we see within those different areas. But a big portion of their job is also going to be the community outreach portion. They're going to go to our crime block watch meetings. They'll attend meetings with various business groups and that sort of thing. Basically, they're there to facilitate relationships between the police department and our community and work cooperatively to solve the crime problems that we're seeing at that time. I will tell you that, from my perspective, our department is stretched thin. We are doing as much as we can to reduce crime rates given our current staffing levels. There's not a lot more I can do other than, as a city, we need to figure out which crimes we no longer go to. So someone calls and says, I have this problem, we might say, that's great. We can take that over the phone tomorrow or whatever, but we can't respond to those types of crimes anymore because unless we're comfortable with the crime rates being where they're at, and if we might be comfortable with them rising just a bit. We're at a point where, frankly, we need additional bodies to be more effective. And this is the best way I can find as police chief to try to grab those additional bodies.
Thank you, Chief. I do appreciate the work you're doing. I'm sure the community does as well. I know the council has said good things about our goals being public safety for the next coming year, and I think this is part of that. I have a question for Troy on the impact of hiring officers out of a fund balance. How would that affect the fund balance for the long term?
Fund balance is a savings account, and thus it doesn't have an annual revenue source. Thus, like any fund that doesn't have money coming in and it's only going out, it would deplete your fund balance over time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion or questions of Chief White?
Well, I've got a question to Troy. Troy, and I guess Chief White also. After the third year, when, say, we have to pick up this, I think the chief mentioned at our General Services Committee meeting that some of this money would come from retirements and things of that nature. Is that correct?
No, the city would have to pick up the entire bill on the fourth year. We are required to keep those officers, those additional 3 cops for the fourth year. After that, if, say that a city were to hit hard financial times or whatever, and at some point we had to lay cops off or whatever, we can just, through retirements or whatever, keep those positions vacant and go back to our current staffing levels.
Right, okay.
But he's right, the strings that he's talking about, yes, there is a requirement to keep these cops through the fourth year.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nate?
Motion carried. Thank you, Chief. Now we move on to a public hearing, and this is a legislative hearing, and Renata likes me to follow all the rules for a legislative hearing. This is a Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, for Community Development Block Grant Funding for Plan Year 2014. Troy, do we have sign-up sheets? Would they ever sign up sheets over there to speak?
Nobody signed.
Nobody signed.
There was no.
Okay. All right. So we have Sherry Wastweet, Grant Administrator, Panhandle Area Council, here to give us a report.
Again, like Renata's mentioned, this is a requirement of the entitlement funds that you guys receive. What I'm going to be talking about tonight is last year's funding. Program year 2014, that program year ended March 31st of this year. So, we must meet a national objective on everything we do with these funds. The main national objective that the city follows is benefiting low to moderate income. We can also aid in the prevention of slum and blight and meet an urgent need. Just real quickly, all projects must meet one, a national objective, they must be eligible, and they must go within the city's consolidated plan. The annual action plan is done yearly, and it's based off of that 5-year plan that is good until 2017. These are the consolidated plan goals. I'll just do that really quickly. We want to increase the supply of housing, increase the supply of rental housing, and that's all for low to moderate income. We want to improve the city's sidewalks to make them more accessible. Continue with the neighborhood revitalization program, which is the MRAP program. Expand higher paying employment opportunities and public service activities. Goal number 1, we were finally able to close out the Habitat for Humanity project. The last house was occupied in December 2014. I closed it out in January of 2014, so that one is now completed. This year, under the rental housing, goal number 2, BBC Research from Denver, Colorado is currently updating the city's housing needs assessment and the analysis of impediments for fair housing choice. Once we get those documents completed, that will help steer us where we need to go in coming years with regards to the housing issues in the town.
Quick question for you. Under that housing assessment, does this money pay for that?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Improvement number 3, the city did complete, last summer, they completed the Harrison Avenue project. The north side from 7th Street to 15th Street was completed. Those were actually 2013 funds, but it wasn't completed until 2014. Emergency minor home repair, we did not hit the number that we usually do because this year it was all about roofs, and roofs are expensive. 8 of our projects were roofs, and they typically are in the $3,000 to $5,000 range, so the money doesn't stretch out near as quickly. We did complete 13 projects, and we still have funding for 5 additional projects that didn't get started before the program year ended. 2 of those have been completed, so now there's 3 more sitting out there. And they're actually in process right now. I just threw up a couple of pictures that these were the roofs. At the top left one you can see it was all curling up. The bottom right, she had a 1-foot diameter hole in the back of her house. It was covered with a tarp, so I couldn't get a picture of it, but she had a limb come down, smashed right through her roof. So they completely replaced her roof. And the porch steps was an elderly resident, and those are the steps that take her to her detached garage. And the boards were just laying there. So we fixed her porch and fixed her steps up. So it was an accessibility issue. We also did some electric work, a furnace, and those porches, like I mentioned. There were 2 of them, actually. This one we're still working on, economic development. It's a hard one for us to get to, and I'm not letting it go. We're going to find something one of these days. There were 3 community opportunity grants awarded in 2014. North Idaho Violence Prevention Center received $10,203. They're using those funds to make improvements to their violent shelter. For the Children's Village received $86,154, and they're using that to reopen the Miller House, which had gotten closed down about, I think, 2 or 3 years ago because they lost their funding through the state. And so they're able to reopen the Miller House, which will give them room for 12 more children without homes. And the Trinity Group Homes, they're continuing their refurbishing and rehabilitation of the Gilbert complex and the 9th Street complex. This year's the work is all about energy efficiency, redoing their hot water heaters, and the roof on the Gilbert is leaking, so they're fixing that. This was the year in review. We used 20% for administration, $59,000, just a little over. The analysis of impediments and the housing needs assessment was $35,000. Community projects right at $121,000. Sidewalks have a budget for $32,089, and neighborhood revitalization $48,104, for a total of $295,366.
Sherry, could I have you stop for just a second?
Sure.
Could you back up to Goal 5? It's the economic. Could you maybe give some examples? You said that there wasn't anything that was spent on that during that time. Could you give us maybe an example of what you're kind of looking for there?
If we can bring a business in that would be willing to hire low to moderate income individuals, which would be a survey process. I've worked with this with the state CDBG fund too. The company would have to be willing to move into Coeur d'Alene or hire Coeur d'Alene residents, and all of the workers, as they're hired, they have to fill out a survey that will tell us whether they were low to moderate income before they were hired to the new job. And of course, it's got to, the low to moderate income levels in Coeur d'Alene are fairly high, so it'd have to be a good manufacturing or good paying job in order for us to be able to meet those limits.
Okay, and it's a new company or a new business?
No, an expansion. An expansion will work as long as they're willing to hire at least 51% low to moderate income. And that what the CDBG funds could be used for is infrastructure improvements. If the water supply or the sewer lines need expanded, or if a road needed extended, we could use those CDBG dollars to do that.
And how do we get the word out that these funds are available? What's the channel of informing folks?
Us, that's what we have these public hearings for, is to get this word out. We also make everything available it's available on our website, it's available on your website. That is something we could look into, maybe getting the word out a little bit more.
Is there a budget amount that you budget for that each year?
No, we have to look at, like, if a company was to come in right now, we'd be looking at budgeting that for next year.
Okay.
Which would start April 1. And so then it's a guess, because the funds fluctuate every year. They either go up or they go down, or, but they've stayed pretty steady the last couple of years. So we'd have to budget it for next year's annual action plan, period.
Okay.
So the sooner we had somebody come to us, the sooner we can get that plan going.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
If I can add to that just a little bit, when we go out for the community grants, we do a request for proposals, and we include this as one of the options that people could apply a grant for as well.
That is true.
One of the challenges we've come against is that we don't have a bunch of money. So we could maybe get $100,000 out the door, and how much would that really assist that business? So it's that kind of benefit to the business. If they can do something, bring something to the table for that amount of money or less, we usually could find something in our community grants to do that. But we don't have a substantial amount, and a lot of them want higher dollar amounts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. We haven't received any public comments to date, and nobody had signed up to make any public comments. So the requested action tonight is to accept any additional public comments that may come up, and for the city to approve the CAPER report so that I may submit it to HUD. It is due on June 30th, but I'd like to get it sent out on Friday if I can.
Okay. Right. Any questions for Sherry? Don't see any questions. Thank you very much for your report. Did you want me to be formal and open and close public comment? Okay, so I'll open public comment. Is there anybody wishing to? Well, no, Dennis, it's comment on this, Dennis.
Yes.
You want to comment on this?
I will.
Okay.
But I also have another comment later on in open. Dennis Heinrichsen, city resident. I'm concerned with the block grants, especially for low-income recipients, where they have far too many toys to the point when it snows, you can't get a ladder truck down 9th Street in the vicinity of Spruce. You can talk to Kenny Gabriel regarding this. I asked him to do so, and I guess they got stuck by the report I received. There needs to be far more accountability for people receiving this kind of housing, and certification of their income sources, whether they are declared or under the table. Thank you.
And Dennis, what did you mean by toys?
Pardon?
You said there were too many toys.
Oh, gosh.
What do you mean by
Boats,
toys?
cars, trucks, parking on lawns, drive-by 9th and Spokane, any time of the day. Parking across the streets. This has been going on since the first house went up, first complex went up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Sherry, to follow up what Dennis said, do you have anything to say right away?
Well, for one thing, we've never done a house in that area, so I'm not aware of what he's talking about. We do a lot of research with regards to their wages and how much they make. They have to give us their W-2s, they have to show us their Social Security statements, they have to show us their bank statements. And it's those bank statements that help us find out if they're depositing money outside of their paychecks, and then they have to be held accountable for that. And so we're very careful on how we make sure that these folks can afford it, or whether they qualify or not.
Theoretically, if someone did own a boat or something like that, does that play into your decision?
They actually have, they are allowed to have up to $50,000 in assets. Outside, not funding assets, but they can have cars, they can have a boat, they can have things. People's lives change. Something happens, they get hurt, they already owned a boat. You can't take their boat away, and that doesn't, it's based on their income, not necessarily on what they have.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? We'll go work through that process. Okay, we'll close the public comment section of that then, and we will be looking for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we approve Plan Year 2014 CAPER submitted to HUD. Got to be fast.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? No discussion seen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Now will we get into the public comment portion of it. Anyone wishing to speak for 3 minutes on city business? Mr. Greg Johnson would like to speak for 3 minutes on city business.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Greg Johnson from the Midtown Association, and I would like to thank my members for being here, too. Thank you, guys. I'm here to bring you guys up to date. It's been a long 10 years and a very long year last year of ongoing talks with LCDC and the Idaho Housing Company on the project slated for Midtown on the corner of 4th and Roosevelt. And within this last year, we've had ongoing talks with LCDC. We've had 2 one-on-ones, not on camera, off-site, with 5 members, council or board members, and that was in February and March. In that time, again, no progress, just a lot of talk. And in that time, we've actually had a letter from the mayor, maybe suggesting that there's a better fit for Midtown for that lot, and that's what we've always said. Even back in September of last year, we gave a presentation asking for a better fit for that neighborhood. And so with that, within the last 60 days of that letter and our meetings with LCDC, there's been no, at their last 2 meetings, there's been no public comment from Mrs. Goodlander, who is the housing chair. There's been no report from her on any activity. So we're going to make some more activity. We've come up with our door hangers. We're going to go old school, back to door and informing our neighbors in Midtown, in the city, of what's going on, again, educating, and also inviting them to our Monday meetings, 5:30 at Kelly's Pub on 4th. We have a web page, we have Facebook, and I have the first 7 here for you guys. You don't have a door, I don't have anything to hang it, but I will give it to you guys, so you guys are aware of it.
You could just bring it down the street.
I could have. So with that, we have a timeline of documents, of emails, of statements, of all that that has gone on with LCDC, the housing company, with what we've proposed, what we've looked at. And with that, I'd love to have, we've already had 2 council members at our meetings before. I'd love to have more. And why we're putting this out, because I'd like some more neighbors to know what's going on in their backyard and what's going on with their city. And that's my 3 minutes.
Well, any questions, though, for Greg? Kiki?
Greg,
Yes.
when you speak about Midtown, what exact borders do your association, do you?
Midtown, Midtown is probably from 1st to 8th or 9th, up to, and there used to be the cutoff from Coeur d'Alene Street or Indiana up to Harrison. And quite frankly, I take it up till you get onto the freeway on 4th. So there are many successful businesses on 4th that go beyond Harrison. And like in these discussions that we've had with LCDC on trying to confine Midtown, the Midtown property owners and business owners take it from Coeur d'Alene Street all the way to the freeway.
So 1st to 9th and Coeur d'Alene Street to
Pretty
the freeway.
much. And as it mushrooms out, it affects. I now live on 11th. I used to live on 3rd. This was in my backyard. I now live on 11th. It's still very important to me. I still take that route to go to the freeway and get a cup of coffee and get a beer and whatnot. So, and just back to I'm going to divert over to Mr. Adams. Our association will be at the East Sherman meetings for input and to take a look at it, because that's on the other side of me on 11th to the end of Sherman. So we're very active and very organized on what we'd like to see in our neighborhood. And again, back to that perfect fit. That's what we're after.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Greg? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any others wishing to give public comment?
Dennis Heinrichsen, Coeur d'Alene resident. Good evening, Mayor Widmer and City Councilman. Bravo, Councilman Adams, for your stance, and appreciate your watchfulness. I have a Plan B for Chief White and the staffing of the Coeur d'Alene Police Department at all levels. You have a $6 million fund balance. You have the taxing authority. In September, you are going to rubber stamp any additions that you might have deemed appropriate for the previous year. There is a need to enhance the Coeur d'Alene Police Department as to patrol officers, animal control, and definitely code enforcement. This is a plea for the establishment of a citizen commission. Whereas my wife and husky were viciously attacked on April 27, 2015, with no assurance of appropriate interdiction, citation, or release of the owner's name and the dog's rabies vaccination in compliance with the city licensure. Whereas Coeur d'Alene Police have lower than national patrol officer staffing, yet the city of Coeur d'Alene has a higher than national average crime rate. Whereas Coeur d'Alene Police consistently denied law-abiding residents the right to sign a citation against persistent violators of established law. Whereas Coeur d'Alene Police refuse to cite a perpetrator unless they see the crime in progress. Whereas state statute, city ordinance, and zoning regulations are deprioritized into oblivion without merit, resulting in neighborhood strife. Be it resolved that a citizens commission comprised of neighborhood watch captains be established by executive order tonight to address the many and ongoing complaints that warrant proper interdiction that have been raised since Neighborhood Watch has begun. Be it resolved that their first order of business be to assess and recommend staffing levels of patrol, code enforcement, and animal control officers with increased hiring and expenditures to be added retroactively to the 2014 city budget when approved September 2015, and further be it resolved that the city of Coeur d'Alene take every measure to ensure that it is safe for a child or woman or someone like me to walk our neighborhoods without fear for assault, with full support for lawful residents employing whatever defense tactic deemed necessary to ensure the health and safety of their family, pets, and property.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Actually, I had a question on the, on 9th. So what's happening on 9th? Obviously, I don't think it has anything to do with our HUD or CDGB grants. what's
Trinity
going
House
on?
isn't necessarily a problem, but there is low-income housing, Section 8 or Title 20, I don't know, usually Section 8, someone's funding it. And it's funny, one person in that area is asking the police to put up the speed zones or the speed sign, and yet people from that quadrant are racing up and down 9th Street at all hours of the day. And this is also a school bus route. School kids walk there, and I should be able to walk there.
Have you contacted the PD to file a code enforcement complaint or anything?
I have done this numerous times. 1935 North 9th is out of code compliance on multiple levels. I was told in March of 2012, in conjunction with the renter at that time and Tim Klug, that if the city of Coeur d'Alene enforced code on that particular house, they would have to do it to all the other dilapidated shacks in Coeur d'Alene. I admit you have a URD action going down on Sherman, probably 3 blocks either side, which will take care of a number of those, since those the improvement of those lots will be incentivized under the URD.
Don't know what you're referring to there, but I just wanted to tell you that one of the chief's goals and one of council's goals with our public safety is to do more code enforcement. And the chief's mentioned it many times, and to get there, we have to hire more cops, and the grant is a way to pay for more cops.
I disagree that the grant is the way to do it. If you can fill a crock hole with half of your fund balance, why can't you improve and preserve the quality of life for people living in southeast Coeur d'Alene?
I would like to see that too. It's a matter of funding. And I appreciate your comments, Dennis.
It's a matter of a citizen bringing a complaint through proper channels in the neighborhood watch before this council, and yet when we do that, we get the plugged ears, can't hear you, we don't care about this, we are not going to enforce this. We're going to be a nice community, and if you can't deal with it, leave. That's the attitude I'm getting, and that's inappropriate. That's not why Neighborhood Watch was convened, or why people have pursued that since the 70s. We recognize, and we need interdiction by civil authority as opposed to duking it out in the streets. As it is at this point, I'm carrying mace and I'm carrying a .44 mag. The first 2 rounds are number 6 shot, and I've been threatened already. I've been told you don't want to mess around with these people or this person. That's inappropriate. You need to do more, and I've already suggested with Eric Keel a venue. I've talked with the court system, and to no avail. To absolutely no avail. The bling is on along the lakefront, along the riverfront, and my neighborhood, perhaps Midtown, is slated for blight. Maybe not Midtown, you've got some interest already going there, but certainly my neighborhood is slated for blight, especially with 1935 North 9th. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, well, we will look for a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, you got
Good.
you
You got the tie on.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to enter into executive session under Idaho Code 672345 subsection B to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers.
Yes.
We'll go into executive session.